Hello, team. Molly here, filming. Well, I'm not filming. Molly here, recording week before Thanksgiving solo podcast. I have so many things that I want to talk about as it pertains to solo podcasting, but since we are moving into the national binge eating holiday, I thought it would be a good idea to talk about that, right? Especially because What You're Craving comes out on a Wednesday. It's a good deep dive. It's a good prep session. I'm here for it all. I'm here for it all. And I think it's a really important thing that we talk about. Like, how do we prepare ourselves for Thanksgiving when we're working on healing our relationship with food? So the first thing I want to say before I even start anything, well, I want to say the thing that I always say to you, which is if somebody tells you that there's one way, run away. Because actually, even the suggestions / advice that I am going to talk about today, like, might not even apply to you. The first questions that you need to answer when it comes to Thanksgiving is, how do I want to feel? What's my end game in my relationship with food? Like, you need to know those answers before you even step in to my Thanksgiving prep podcast. Because frankly, if you're like, an intuitive eater and you're like, all foods are good foods, and I just want to feel like great about following my intuition at Thanksgiving, I think that's actually a wonderful goal. It's not one that I can like relate to personally. And so I'm not going to talk about it today. But I actually think that there's parts of this podcast that can be really helpful to you, but parts that won't. And this whole like cancel culture and like certainly all of this diet drama and trauma just has, when you listen to a podcast that has to do with Thanksgiving prep, my experience is that your brain shuts off and you give me like all of your power, and I don't want it. Thank you. Thank you for the offer. Thank you for the Hanukkah gifts, but your power is not on my Hanukkah wish list. So keep your power, keep your wise mind. As we say in the 12 steps, take what you want and leave the rest. So I want you to be really, really thoughtful as you're listening to my suggestions and see if they apply to you or they don't. I mean, this is the whole part because, I love that Ram Dass quote, right? You want to see how spiritual you are, go visit your family. I mean, the fact is like, there's just so much vulnerability when it comes to holidays. If you're going and spending them with your family, I think, listen, talk about FOMO, right? We're just coming off of pandemic and so many of us are going to do this again. And I think there's muscle memory issue. I think a lot of us have like forgotten how to go to family dinners and be with people. At least I have. I'm relearning all of that. And for those of us who struggle with binge eating and certainly relate to some of my stuff when I'm talking about, having an unhealthy relationship with sugar, things like that. I mean, binging is super normalized around the holiday season. I think it's amazing. I mean, diet culture is really the devil incarnate, isn't it? Because they somehow have created this thing where it's like October, November, December, binge your brains out. It's good. Enjoy yourself. Very rarely do I meet people who truly enjoy themselves when they're binging, by the way. Is that you? Because I think we enjoy ourselves when we're binging. We think we enjoy ourselves when we're like giving in and treating ourselves. But gosh, so rarely are we ever treating ourselves. I remember one time I was treating this guy and we were talking about his food and he had eaten 6 protein bars that night. And I really gently said to him, like, hey, what were those 6 protein bars about? What's going on for you? And he just started screaming at me. He was like, I was trying to relax. And I just sort of tilted my head at him, which, by the way, I mean, you want to meet someone who protects their substance, meet Molly Carmel. I mean, I so relate to what he was saying to me. So it's not a judgment. He says, I was trying to relax. And I said, well, it doesn't sound so relaxing. So I just want you to bring that into Thanksgiving with you, which is, I want you to sort of think, as we say, think through the drink. Like, does it really feel good when you're binging on pumpkin pie? Like, does it really feel good when you're sneaking the marshmallows off the sweet potatoes in the kitchen with nobody looking. Like, does that really feel good to you? Is that really how you want to be feeling on Thanksgiving? If it is, then you got your plan. If it isn't, then we may want to replan, right? I mean, that's what the reason we cope ahead, the reason we think about what we want to feel, how we want to feel, the reason we really want to be thoughtful about our planning is mostly because the history for many of us of the utility or being, successful when it comes to feeling good about ourselves and good about our relationship with food after big events like Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's just, for many of us, it's just like hasn't been that effective. So I want to help you be more effective is what I want to say. And I always remember many years ago, I was dating this guy and we went to his parents' house for Thanksgiving. And he looked at me and he goes, listen, this is about to get so ugly. And I hope we're still together by the end of this. And what he meant was that he was about to go and eat so much food that he didn't want me to judge him and how disgusting he felt about it. Now, if anybody understands what it is to want to binge your brains out and not be judged about it, it was me. So he really picked the right girl in that moment. But long-term, that relationship didn't work. Okay. So here's the deal. What makes Thanksgiving so tricky? Number one, binging is completely normalized. Like I was talking about with diet culture. Diet culture is just waiting to attack us on Jan 1 to get us back in their evil grips. Don't ever forget that about the holiday season. There's such an undercover current of the evils of diet culture immersed in holiday season. Don't ever forget that. And like, there's lots and lots and lots of options. There's options of foods that we don't normally eat. And there's lots of feelings about the food, right? Like Michael Moss talks about this at length in Hooked, right? He talks about like our emotional attachment to food and our emotional attachment to Thanksgiving and our emotional attachment to not being with our family for years. And I don't tell you this to scare you. I tell you this to prepare you. Like, that we're very vulnerable to making choices that are not consistent with maybe what we want to be doing when it comes to the holidays, because there's just so many new factors. Talk about decision overwhelm and decision fatigue, and then there's just lots of food that for many of us, myself at least, just are not that helpful, right? Me plus stuffing always wins. Me plus marshmallow always wins. I'm not a moderator. Many of you listening are not moderators. And even if you are a moderator, right? Even if you're like, listen, I don't have this full-blown sugar thing, but it doesn't work for me. It's still a great thing to think about. Because what I really want you to be is prepared. Whatever choices you make, however you want to feel, that's on you, right? However you want this to go, whatever your long-term relationship goals are with food, that's yours. But you need to know it. I've said this over and over and over again in my years of talking. This is like my tax season, my years of talking about this. It's just like the worst thing you can do for your relationship with food and yourself when you walk into a big, vulnerable event is have your plan be a shoulder shrug. You know what I mean? Is have your plan be like, I don't know, I'll figure it out when I get there. That's just research driven. Like usually that doesn't work out so well. Perhaps you'll be the anomaly. I don't know. I hope you are. If you're like, F you, Molly, I'm not planning. I mean, yeah, sure. But it's really a good idea to have something in your head, some kind of roadmap that at least about how you want to feel and what your long-term goals are with food, because then at least you can run that against your decisions. Do I want to eat this? Well, will it make me feel peaceful? Will it make me feel esteemable? Will it make me feel hopeful? Will it help on this relationship with food that I want, to be pretty neutral? No. Okay. Even if you still do it, you've had a big, long conversation about it. And so it's in such a different place than this mindless stuff. Here's the other problem that we have to solve about the holidays. Not the food, the people, right? Food pushers. Oh, come on. You have to try this just this once. It's Thanksgiving, but I made it for you. You know all of them. The FOG, the fear, obligation, and guilt, the guilt pushers. And, it's a funny thing about the food because people really think, and especially family just thinks that they have this all access pass to ask super intrusive questions, continuing on and on and on, right? Sometimes insensitive, brings up a lot of discomfort, and it's a great thing to be prepared for. So Thanksgiving is like a very powerful holiday personally for me because October was the last time I had a big binge was 12 years ago, October. And so that November, so it was about 6 weeks into this decision, which I want to share with you. I actually didn't know that that was going to be the last binge that I had, so never, ever, ever give up. I just want to say one more thing about that. If I had known that that October binge was going to be my last binge, I would have had so much more food. Just FYI. But that Thanksgiving, it was about 6 weeks in, and I could tell that I had some traction. And for some reason, and I have absolutely no idea how this happened, I had this thought that came into my head that was like, what if you really, really do Thanksgiving in this esteemable, loving way? And what if you do all the things that you've told people to do for years? What would happen? And I was pretty determined that I was going to get through Thanksgiving in a way that made me feel really good about myself. But the problem was that I knew that that was going to take a lot of work and a lot of opposite action and a lot of planning. And in those moments, I wasn't in the mood for it, but I was desperate enough. And I had known, because I'd had about 6 weeks of really feeling really good without binging, that I maybe could take that risk on myself. I maybe could take that chance and try really hard. And so that Thanksgiving, it was bonkers. Like I was like a soldier. I was like a soldier. 0-200 hours, take a walk, 0-220 hours, make a call. I had all of these plans. I planned for every part of that holiday. It was a really diligent process. Like I planned what skills I was going to use. I planned what I was going to eat. I planned how I was going to stay away from food. I planned to walk with my family after dinner. I planned so many things. And I just remember this was a really life-changing moment for me in my recovery, because I remember when it was over, and I remember thinking, because we just in the transparency, the Thanksgiving before, I was like overeating, throwing up in the bathroom, eating more, sneaking food. Next morning, eating like it was, if you have what I have, how this feels. It was just such self-hate and chaos and hopelessness. And I really didn't want to ever feel that way again. I didn't know how long it would take to have to heal that, but here we are. And I have to say, after that Thanksgiving, I remember taking this night walk with my family, walking up the hill, walking inside, and thinking, oh my God, this is possible. And I tell you the story simply because for you, it's possible too. It is very, very possible. You have the opportunity to take control this year. You don't have to be a victim to Thanksgiving, and I wonder, I pose the question to you today. What would it feel like if at the end of Thanksgiving dinner, you are able to say to yourself, wow, I nailed it. And even if, wow, I nailed it is not your truth, if you are really just able to say, wow, I gave that my all, 80%, go me. Wow. These are skills we need to be using every single day, but I think it's very possible. So when it comes to food, planning is the name of the game. That's not what I think, because, I'm good at planning now, but back in the day, it was like the most aversive thing I could think of. I was like, stop. What if I want to do something different? And so, to the extent that you're willing to plan and ask questions and bring food and ensure that you're like safe with food, or that at least the food that loves you back is going to be available and ready for you, this is the extent that this thing can be, pretty seamless for you. I love thinking about it like this, like, what am I going to eat and what am I not going to eat, right? What am I going to do and what am I not going to do, right? So, and then I do love this idea. This is sort of in my community. We've been talking a lot about this because it's so hard, right? With everybody binging around you. And it's like so easy to like bites, licks, and tastes and take lots of plates. And like, I just love this idea of like one civilian plate of food at Thanksgiving. Like that's the portion size I get. And then I can have some flexibility around that. I mean, for me, I don't put sugar and flour at it, but that's like my truth. But I think about how easy it is to overeat, because listen, we're pack animals. Everyone else around you binge eating, like it's super easy to say, oh, it's not that big deal. Oh, I'll deal with it tomorrow. By the way, those are like the biggest lies we tell ourselves. But I also love this idea of planning for skills. Like, what are 3 skills that I am going to use before I cross these limits? So if I'm saying civilian plate of food, 1 civilian plate of food, what are 3 things I'm going to do before I take seconds, before I take my fingers onto my sister's plate and take a bite of her food with my hands, which is a real bad habit, but I'm really been known to do that. If you've ever sat with me, you know that happens from time to time. Not my most beautiful moments, but here we are. Love myself no matter what. So saying like, okay, I'm going to go text a friend. I'm going to go read an article. I'm going to go wash my hands. I'm going to go listen to a song. I'm going to go ask somebody how they're doing. I'm going to go see if anybody needs some help. I'm going to go, there's so many things that you can do. And all it does is give you a stopgap to make this decision of if you want to cross your lines. You are totally entitled to cross your lines. You are the boss, applesauce. It's just, there's such a difference between crossing your lines with your own permission and crossing your lines mindlessly, right? Like life is life. And so of course, like we plan, the universe laughs, right? So you can have this whole plan and then you can say, you know what, I'm here and I want to do something very different. And it's this very conscious choice. And you've taken a pause. Maybe you've even called someone in your power circle and you've said, hey, change of plan. What do you think about this? And the person says, well, this is what I think. This is such a thoughtful shift. This is such a thoughtful pivot. I'm all for it. I think what gets us is, when it's impulsive and reactive and the root is I want, right? It's like I always say this about like sort of internal wisdom and wise mind. I mean, there's not a religion or spiritual practice in the world that says, yeah, reacting is a good idea. I'd say the same thing about Thanksgiving planning. Can you be responding? Can you be breathing? Can you be making sure that even if you're going to be shifting plans, that it is so signed on by your wise mind? At the end of the day, it's about your relationship with yourself in this, right? So being super lighthearted, easy towards your fears and your judgments, just sort of letting them like water off a duck's back, just like trying to stay in the moment and staying connected. Like if you're not close with your family, making sure that you let a few people know, hey, I'm going to my family's house and like, I'm going to need to be texting you. Right. I love that. I was doing that a lot in my early years of recovery. Or telling your family members like, hey, can I check in with you? Like these are beautiful acts of vulnerability. So you might be listening to this saying, oh, I could never do that. That's so pathetic. I actually think it's the most beautiful, vulnerable thing you can do is ask for help. And I think you would be surprised how many other people find Thanksgiving and these big food holidays challenging. I mean, so if you think about it as not just a service to yourself, but maybe even a service to others, like, and there are people at family holidays who are not having a problem with the food, but might be having a problem with their emotions or missing people. Like before you make an assumption that these are fragilizing or, skills that definitely won't work for you or pathetic or whatever your judgment is about it, try it. That's what I always say about skills. Don't knock it till you tried it. Also, morning time, pregame, grounding yourself, right? Getting ready, thinking through the day, really taking 10 minutes, 20 minutes to really think through how am I going to do this in a way that is consistent with my goals and consistent with how I want to feel about myself when this is over. And I forgot to say this one thing, just going back to the food for a second, my apologies. A lot of people ask me about appetizers. They ask me about appetizers when it comes to holidays because, it's all apps and then it's dinner. And I'm just going to tell you what I think about this. And because I have been doing this for so many years with so many people, and at least the people who come to me for treatment, very rarely have I seen somebody do appetizers and dinner well, because the problem usually is that we get super full on the appetizers, and then we're sort of like overeating dinner, and then we're feeling really bad about ourselves. There's some research that suggests that when you flip that switch of overeating, that's actually where the binging comes, the effits come. And so it's really, if you're going to be doing appetizers, think about not doing them. And if you're just really dead set on it, of course I'm here to support you. Be really thoughtful about it, and try to be really thoughtful about your satiety level, right? About your level of fullness. Like, try to eat it a little slower. Try to really make sense of things. I mean, I think you can do appetizers. I just don't think that the investment in mindfulness is usually worth it personally. I think it's just easier saying, you know what? I'm not going to do appetizers. If there's something amazing, I'll get the recipe. I'll make it another day. I mean, that's the other thing you want to remember. You really can get pecan pie any old time. Especially in this world, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can get this food anytime. Don't get into the scarcity of it. Don't buy that hype. You can get any food anytime here in America. I mean, we can talk about the impact on the environment another day, but there's never a time that you can't get what is being served at this meal. So do not let that sort of, oh my God, I'm never going to get it again. Do not let that into your compass. Be more abundant. Be more abundant, my love. All right, let me get to the people. Okay. Setting limits is the greatest gift you give yourself and others, right? And the quickest sentence when you don't want to talk about something is no, right? No is a complete sentence. I love that. The other thing about people is they have a hard time listening from time to time. And so I love a good broken record. No, thank you. Thanks anyway. You know what? I'm good. I don't find it annoying because I know people have a hard time listening. And the other thing I know is that usually when people are pushing food on me, it's about their issues with food or their issues with me. It has nothing to do with me. And I think if you can keep this in the forefront of your mind, that you don't personalize, oh, my daddy just kept on offering me brownies. Can you believe it? And it's like, well, yeah, your dad loves you. Food is love. People are not accustomed to us having limits around our food yet. That takes a little bit of time to retrain people. It's not personal. Just say no or walk away. I think when we get these big emotions, when we start to tell these stories about what it means that people are pushing food on us, that's really where we lose our wisdom. You know what I mean? Stick to your guns, keep it on the eye, keep it about you and your relationship with food. It's going to be so much easier. And try not to get too emotionally dysregulated. Try not to lose your mind about having to say no so many times. It's everybody wants you to be with them. I mean, listen, back in the day when I was deep in the food, when I saw somebody watching what they were eating and taking care of themselves, they were the biggest trigger there because they were reminding me that maybe I wanted to do that for myself. So I was always trying to get somebody to eat with me. You know what I mean? I was psyched when someone was down to binge with me, or that at least the lower part of me was psyched about that. So just try not to take it all so personally is what I really, if I could give you one piece of advice, it's 1,000% of the time when people have an issue with what you're eating, it's their issue with what they're eating. I promise, right? And then the only other thing I want to say is don't be scared to ask for what you need. Don't be scared to call ahead. Don't be scared to bring, food for everybody, food for yourself. If it ends up that you're able to be more present, if it ends up that you're able to be more fun, more available, and you're able to, by the end of this dinner, feel so good about yourself, that's a gift to everybody. So self-advocacy is really a thing. It really, really is. Other people are not responsible for reading your mind, taking care of you. Always better to check in, right? And then one more, compare and despair. Don't compare yourself to what other people are eating. You do you, boo. What other people are eating, what other people are suggesting, what other people are not eating. If someone's having a shake for dinner, none of this is your problem. You can't control other people's behavior. You can control yours. Stick to you. Your needs are different than your sister's. Oh, my sister, she can just eat what she wants. She never thinks about food. Number one, we don't actually know that's true because we don't have a direct line to her brain and her spirit. But number two, all that does is make your stuff seem like it's pathological, and it's not. You're just awake and aware and have different needs. So stop making this about you being good and other people being bad, you being bad, other people. Let's take this out of the moral plane immediately. You're awesome. That's all you need to know, right? So here in conclusion, oh, I just want to say one more thing. Sorry. You know how I am. I learned this very early on. One of my spiritual teachers told me this, and she said, Molly, it's not really the Thanksgiving dinner. It's really the morning after Thanksgiving dinner, because you're going to be, since I know you're going to be nailing it, you're going to be using so much of your energy and your thinking and your spirit on on doing it for the first time, right? Or for the 18th time. And you want to be mindful about the next day. You may need a little downtime. You may need a little nap. You may need some kind of self-soothing, self-loving behavior and activity the next day. And you may need to be a little bit more mindful about bites, licks, and tastes, and sort of there being like a tsunami after the earthquake kind of vibe. You know what I mean? It's a great thing to think about, right? It's really that reentry can be challenging for some of us because we've expended so much energy and thought on creating this new snow groove for Thanksgiving. So it would make sense that perhaps we're going to be a little bit tired and just need a little bit of extra attention on nourishing and nurturing ourselves the next day. I mean, at the end of the day, I fully believe you can do this with all my heart and all of my soul. And if you fall short of what your ideal is, I'm begging you, a slip doesn't have to become a slide, right? A brownie doesn't have to become a plate of brownies and ice cream and the next day and the next day and the next day, right? I offer you this opportunity to, even if you do it 50%, right? Can we first of all celebrate that you're even making an attempt at trying to do Thanksgiving differently for yourself? Like thinking about celebration, thinking about self-love, thinking about being proud of yourself for the attempts at this. And then the idea that just because you go off the course that you created doesn't mean, you can steer off the road and steer right back on. You don't need to steer off the road, down the hill, down the bumps, into the river, have the car break down there, and then, just lay there for dead. You could even be down the hill, put the brakes on, put the car in reverse and get back on the street. All I'm saying, there's so many permutations to staying out of the efforts, because the thing is, the efforts are really hard. Just cancel that part, the whole efforts part. But we want to just be staying out of the efforts, because the efforts, they're like putting a noose around your neck. And not only are they rooted in you not loving yourself and all of those kind of negative voices coming back and having a party, having a Super Bowl show in your head, but maybe more important, they rob you of having a really nice time at an event and having any moments of self-esteem and self-worth and self-love. And and being present for others. And that's the name of the game. And also for being grateful. And if I haven't said it, which I haven't, I am so grateful. This year has been beautiful with getting to know so many of you. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of your life with this podcast. I mean, I have gotten so much beautiful feedback. Thanks for even listening and being interested and giving me feedback and just coming into my community and coming into my life and coming into my world. I'm grateful most days. I'm grateful every day, but I'm really, really grateful today in this moment right now to think about all of you and letting me be a part of your life. So go nail Thanksgiving. I believe in you with all of my heart and soul. Sending you lots and lots of love and gratitude today and every day. Thanks.